We're breaking free, we're soaring, flying. Hi, spooky friends, and welcome back to Corks and Crypts. I'm your host, DJ, here with my ever-lovely co-host,
Paul, back again.
So, Paul, tell me, how's your week been?
Oh my gosh, my week was so long. So it was Columbus Day, so we had off Monday, right?
Right.
They managed to fit 6 days into that 4-day work week. We were so busy. It was insane, and I am so exhausted. It will never cease to blow my mind, like how 4-day work weeks end up still being so freaking long.
I think, so Paul and I, we work in finance, and we're not going to get into it, but we work in retail finance. So we do work with the public in a very offhanded way, and so I think it's just like, because the economy's kind of downturned, we're just getting crap from other people who are trying to make things stick.
Right. And it's just like, we were so busy this week for no reason. And also, I was tired from the weekend, because last weekend I was like partying with my frat brothers. I went and visited.
You went to Deep Creek, right?
Yeah, Deep Creek, Maryland, beautiful. If you ever get the chance to go, definitely recommend. The houses are beautiful, but was definitely tired after a long weekend of like having a good time with my old frat brothers. But yeah, other than that, just a long work week and ready. Glad for the new weekend and time to relax.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how about you?
Last weekend I hung out with our bestie for the rusty, Dan. We had a cute little date night. We went to Morton's Steakhouse here in downtown Pittsburgh. Spent way too much money, but somehow I got the cheaper. Somehow I had less of a budget, yet I ended up with the cheaper meal.
Right.
Don't know how that happened. Sorry, Dan. But no, it was great to like get to sit with him and just hang out and talk with him one-on-one for a while, because we don't get to do that often. That was my weekend last week, and then as Paul said, this work week was just awful. And so we actually just got back from a drag brunch where some of our good Judies, our sisters, were performing. Paul,
shout out to Vivian Spice, Citrus Cyanide,
and Savannah Ray. I did remember their names. I was just waiting for a point where I could interject. Mm-hmm. They're our sisters. We've talked in the podcast about Paul having done drag as Mafia before. I myself have done drag as Diana Peoples, so it was good to get out and see them again and like
see the girls we used to perform with. It was really nice. It was a nice brunch.
And be reminded, because like we're not homebodies, but we don't hang out with a lot of people, and the fact that we do have friends out in the world.
Yeah, it's a nice reminder that we can go out and people know who we are.
Yeah, I definitely talk a lot like about like I'll talk to my grandparents. It's like, who are you hanging out with? And it's like, Paul and Dan. Who else is there?
Right. That's all. I hang out with you and Dan too. That's all I hang out with too. So no, it was nice to get out and about and do something different for once.
No, it's like, I love Deep Creek. I used to go there when I was younger for vacations, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
For sure.
We will definitely talk more about it on a later episode, Deep Creek itself.
Probably. There might be some haunted stuff about Deep Creek or something.
And if I can't, it does relate to Lake Lanier, and that it's a man-made lake.
Right. So we could do something about that in the future.
So we are going to get into the drinking. Paul did not drink during the drag brunch. I, however, had 3 glasses of Riesling, and now we are moving on to a red. I am so sorry, Paul, that I picked another red, but I could not find any. I was determined to find a white and could not find a white that satisfied me for this topic.
You know, that's okay. I can make the sacrifice.
But, you know, I like red wine. I think I metabolize it better than white wine. White wine gets me drunk a little too fast.
Yeah, and I have less of a hangover on reds as well.
Same here. You know, red wine's better for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's antioxidants in red grapes that are better for you than white grapes.
Oh, okay.
But, and I know this because when I'm a nerd, and used to watch the Smithsonian Channel. The only reason I do not watch the Smithsonian Channel now is I don't have cable. But champagne is actually a mix of red and white grapes, but it has the health benefits of red grapes. Oh. It's actually very good for your heart.
Huh. Well, you heard it here, folks. Drown your fucking stomach in champagne. It's good for your heart.
You got a heart ailment? Just drink champagne or whatnot. So today's paranormal pairing is Uneven Keel from Courtyard Winery. This is actually a winery fairly local to us. It's from Erie, PA, which is only about 2 hours away.
Yeah, I've been there before. It's a beautiful winery. They have great wines.
They do have great wines. They have a shop in Rosspark Mall where I worked for many, many years, and so I do love their wines. So on the front of the bottle, it says red wine suitable for any mate on board from captain to scallywag.
Okay, so we're giving a pirate theme.
A little bit.
Okay.
I have a little more of a description. It is a traditional ruby port style wine, a blend of barrel-aged red wines fortified with brandy to 19.6% alcohol.
19%? That's
19.6.
That's a Four Loko. Oh my god.
This is our Uneven Keel with an uneven label. Each bottle is hand labeled and hand dipped into a red wax, making this a unique gift for the person that has everything. And let me say, it is hand dipped in red wax because I try to make the cork as accessible beforehand as possible.
Yeah.
So you don't have moments of silence as I'm trying to pull it off. Mm-hmm. And I literally pulled it out of I picked it out and I didn't realize, and I looked upon and I said, how the hell am I supposed to get this off?
You figured it out, though. You got it off.
I just took a knife and scraped it off. It came out fairly easily.
It's like taking the wax off cheese. It's fine.
I should know this because I love cheese, but there's wax on cheese?
Yeah, like...
you mean the rind?
Yeah, the rind. That's what I meant. My bad.
That's part of the cheese.
See, I'm not cultured, like...
See, I'm very bougie, and also I took French for 6 years, and so a big part of my French classes was immersion in the culture, so we did eat French cheese and bread.
Here we go, the cork pop.
It's not going to be a pop right now. Here we go.
All right. There was a little pop there.
There was a little pop. It wasn't hugely satisfying, but we'll take it.
She was close.
Oh, it has a nice aroma if you would like to smell the cork.
Ooh, it does smell good. Okay. This doesn't smell too dry either, which is good for me. Now, if you like your dry wines, well, let's give it a taste before we go. Had to pause there and get that poor ASMR in. But... yeah, let's give it a taste and see if it actually isn't as dry as it smells. Which, fingers crossed. Cheers.
That's not dry.
No, that is not dry.
That's fairly sweet.
That is sweet. I like it. That's like, there's a little bit of dryness, but like, just like a touch of dry.
Yeah.
That's really
like
good.
A little dry aftertaste.
It's like a dry grape juice, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which I guess, like, that is what red wine is dry grape juice.
It's alcoholic grape juice.
Tea, exactly.
All right, Paul. I'm going to tell you a story.
I'm ready.
On December 4th, 1872, the crew of the Canadian ship De Gratia were 3 weeks into their transatlantic voyage. It was a difficult crossing, marred by rough seas and bad weather. With port just days away, they could finally breathe easily. Until a ghost ship was spotted just miles from them. But this ship was no mere specter or vision or hallucination. She was an actual ship, which was unexplainably abandoned in near-perfect condition in the middle of the ocean. Why would a crew leave a perfectly good ship? Where would they go? Today we're going to discuss the Mary Celeste.
The Mary Celeste? Okay, I think I went to high school with her.
Oh my god.
Just kidding.
Have you ever, heard anything about this one?
No.
She is the original ghost ship. Okay.
I don't know anything about this. So this will be a good episode because I'm going to learn right along with the listeners.
Absolutely. This is a really good one. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a big ship nerd in my free time.
Mainly the Titanic.
But I do really love ships, and I was listening to a podcast about shipwrecks, and I didn't make it all the way through the episode. Commitment issues.
Happens to the best of us.
But because they were talking about spooky shipwrecks, I was like, oh, the Mary Celeste would be great. And this episode goes out on the 29th. So this is our Halloween week episode, although we will be doing a bonus episode on actual Halloween.
Yep, so be sure to listen to our bonus Halloween episode whenever that comes out. Well, on Halloween, obviously.
It will come out. So this comes out on Sunday, the 29th. Our Halloween episode will come out on Tuesday, the 31st, Halloween day.
Awesome. Cool.
Before I begin, I would like to make a note. Ships are often referred to in the feminine as her. So, as I'm saying, her, she, I am referring to Mary Celeste as a ship. I'm not confusing her with being a real woman. So, I wanted to make that clear before I started.
Sounds good. And I'm glad you're not misgendering the ship either.
No. Ships are very much hers, whether they like it or not.
Oh, wow. Not forcing your gender stereotypes onto the ships in 2023?
Unfortunately, yeah. Anyways, so she was built in 1860 by the Spencer's Island shipyard in Nova Scotia in the Bay of Fundy. Fun fact, Spencer's Island is not actually an island.
Oh, really?
It's a town on the mainland that's named after an island that's off the coast that is uninhabited.
Okay.
But she was built right there on the Bay of Fundy, which is really famous for having the most drastic tides in the world.
Mm-hmm.
People see pictures of high tide, it's really close to the population, and then low tide, there's miles of sand where water used to be.
Oh, that's wild.
It's really drastic. And this was fairly early on in history, colonial Canadian history. And so what really set apart this shipyard was that they were cutting down trees to build her right from the shipyard. She was being built, and you could hear the logs being cut to build her.
Okay.
She was the first ship built by that shipyard. She was a brigantine, which I'm going to explain what that means. It's
Perfect.
A two-masted ship with a fully square-rigged foremast and a second main mast with a square topsail and a gaff sail.
Well, I love a good mast.
So give me a second, and I will actually show you a picture just to brigantine.
Well, I already know what it looks like to be full mast. Usually I have this guy, Craig, he comes over a lot. He's full mast all the time, so I have a pretty good idea of what that looks like.
I think I want to quit the podcast.
This is your resignation?
This is my resignation.
We're revoking your Demdike rewards card.
I am not a crook. All right, so you can see the main mast has all square sails.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the back one, it has two square mainsails, but it has one that's going perpendicular with the ship, parallel with the ship.
Okay. Side note for visual aid, be sure to go to our Instagram.
Yeah, look up what a brigantine is. I don't know why it's important, but it's important.
And we'll post a picture on our Instagram as well.
She had 2 deck houses and a squared stern, and she was 99 feet long and 198.5 tons.
Oh, wow. She was a big girl.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, she wasn't. She was a fairly small ship. She was a small sailing merchant ship. So in 1860, this is when steam ships are starting to take over. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're still building sailing ships, it's a fairly smaller, slower means of travel.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, she was the first ship built by Spencer's Island Shipyard, and she was launched as the Amazon.
So she had a different name at first.
Yes.
Okay.
And now there are a number of stories from later on that say that her launch was marred somehow by injury or accident.
Mm-hmm.
A sense of foreshadowing when we get later on. But actually, none of that happened. She actually had a very smooth and uneventful launching. And what that means for those of you who don't know, boats and ships are made on land, and then when their hull is complete, they launch it into the water.
Okay.
So, and it's a very big moment. Some shipyards, they call it a christening, like a baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get the image of like breaking the champagne bottle across the bow and I name this ship whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know how, like what their practices were, but it was uneventful.
Okay.
She was completed in 1861, and her first commander was Captain Robert McClelland. McClelland. The ship's maiden voyage was to sail from Spencer's Island to 5 islands to pick up her cargo, and then sail across the Atlantic from Canada to London.
That's a long first trip. Wow, they had a lot of faith in her.
She was a cargo ship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was a cargo ship. She was not, despite what other people will say later, she was not a passenger ship.
Okay.
Which 99 feet long, that's, I was thinking about yard. Wait, is it, how many is...
Girl, don't ask me about math, because you already know.
It's a football field, feet or yards? Is it 100 feet or 100? It's 100 yards. Never mind, I'm a dumb bitch.
Girl, we didn't go to school for math. It's okay.
She's not very big. So let me see okay. So one football field is 100 yards.
Okay.
So that would be 300 feet. Oh, she's like a third of a football field long.
That's so small.
She's small.
Okay.
She's small. Yeah. But anyways, when they were getting ready to go on this crossing, McClelland was ill. He had a cold. He was sick.
Mm-hmm.
But he was determined to go on with the voyage and actually thought that the sea air was helpful. The 1800s and the early 1900s, that was really the time when, like, fresh air will help my cold.
Okay.
Yeah. This was the time, this was also the time when we were sending people with tuberculosis to the mountains because we thought the air was cleaner there.
Oh my god.
So the ship sets sail and it is in the harbor when it turns around.
Okay.
McClelland, they hadn't even made it out of the harbor when McClelland took a turn for the worse with his cold.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to turn around and go back to the dock where he was carried off of the ship to the home of one of the ship's owners, Jacob Spicer, where he promptly died.
Oh, wow. I guess you can die from the cold that quick back in that day.
It was actually pneumonia.
Oh, so...
It was pneumonia.
So he didn't know it was pneumonia.
He didn't quite know it was pneumonia. And it wasn't until he was in the house when the doctor said, girl, you have pneumonia.
You're gonna die. Sorry, sweaty.
So when he died, his body was loaded back onto the Amazon, which then sailed from Spencer's Island to McClelland's hometown of Economy, Nova Scotia, where he was met at the docks by his new wife, now his widow. Therefore, the body of her first captain was her very first cargo.
Oh, jeez.
She had not yet picked up her first cargo, so her first cargo was the body of her first captain.
That's spooky and foreshadowing.
It's very foreshadowing. You don't even know what happens next.
No.
It's foreshadowing.
Right, it's already not starting off good.
And I do apologize. This is a lot of history, but then we're going to get into the fun theories. Okay. But one of the theories, we need this history. It is vital to this theory.
Okay.
It's my favorite theory.
Awesome.
Captain Jack Parker then took over as captain and sailor to London. Along the way, now remember, she is a very small boat. Mm-hmm. The Atlantic Ocean is a very large ocean. So on the way, she stopped in East Bay, Maine, where she was tangled in fishing lines and was damaged and stuck for 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
Now, mind you, she's not even like an eighth into her first voyage.
Right. Things aren't going well for Kitty Girl.
Finally, she continued on to London, where she dropped off her cargo, received new cargo. She then sailed down the Thames, which is the river that runs through London.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
And she was en route to Portugal. And at the end of the Thames, where the Thames meets the Channel, it's called the Strait of Dover. And in the Strait of Dover, she collided with a British brig and sunk it.
Oh no.
As I mentioned, I like the Titanic. The Titanic had a very eventful first voyage because it struck an iceberg and sank and killed a bunch of people. However, I have to say, most eventful maiden voyage has to go to the Amazon.
Right. This is crazy. She's getting stuck. She's sinking, bitches. She's on a warpath.
She is on a warpath. I do believe nobody died, though, in the collision.
Well, that's good at least.
I think everyone was saved. So this leads to many years of uneventful voyages under the command of Captain William Thompson.
Okay.
This period of peace was ended in the fall of 1867. She had sailed a shipment of corn from Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, good morning, Baltimore.
To Halifax, Nova Scotia. She was anchored in Halifax, unloading the cargo, getting new supplies, when a telegram from the ship's owners came telling Thompson to hold the boat in Halifax. His replacement was coming because he was fired.
Oh, well, why was he fired?
They just weren't very happy with him, and so they decided to fire him. And rather than waiting till he was back in home port, so ships do have home ports, especially at this time. This is where you go when the weather's too bad to go or when you need repairs. And her home port was Spencer's Island, where she was built. She was owned by the people who had built her. So rather than waiting, and she's so close to home. She's in Halifax. She's in the same Canadian Providence. Why wouldn't you just wait for her to come home? And I say that because what happens next is crazy.
I'm ready.
Thompson threw George Spicer, who was the son of the owners and also a sailor who was on the crew, off of the ship.
He threw him off?
Well, he kicked him off. I don't know if he threw him in the harbor or if he, just kicked him off.
He went Boston Tea Party on him.
And he set sail north for Cape Breton. Now, Cape Breton is a island peninsula thing in northern Canada along the east coast. And it has really terrible winter storms. So terrible that Amazon's insurance policies strictly forbade it from sailing around Cape Breton at any point after November. And if it did and it was damaged, the insurance policy was voided.
Okay.
So, what did Thompson do? He sailed her to Cape Breton.
Of course.
And it was after November. Allegedly, a storm hit the Amazon and beached her and damaged her beyond repair.
Oh.
Which Thompson promptly reported to the owners. Her owners chose to abandon her. Because, as I mentioned, she was sailing after November around Cape Breton. And insurance said, your insurance policy is void. So they chose to abandon her.
Okay.
Which, who cares? She's damaged beyond repair.
Right.
Except she was quickly claimed by a man named Alexander McBean, who immediately registered to Sydney, Nova Scotia. Now, this points to fraud.
Okay.
Because Nova Scotia law at the time only allowed a ship to be registered if she was already seaworthy.
Okay.
So the owner said, nah, we don't want her. We'll write her off as a loss. And this guy said, mine now.
Snatched.
So what probably happened was Thompson was really pissed off about being fired, so he purposely beached her, which you can purposely beach a ship, and just reported that she was damaged to get back at the owners for screwing them over. Now this starts a lot of hand passing.
Okay.
McBean sold her after 1 week to John Beatty. Beatty owned her for less than a year before wrecking her and abandoning her in Maine.
There's a lot going on here. They're using and abusing this ship. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Beatty also, Beatty was her captain too, he bought her and he was her own captain. I kind of get the sense he had no idea what he was doing and this was just a fun thing for him. Which is how he managed to wreck a car. Sorry, I was going to make a comparison to this is like having a car and then wrecking it within a year of having it.
Right, I would compare this to this is his midlife crisis, ship or something.
Yes. Honey, I'm going to start a shipping business.
Right, you're in your full life crisis, midlife crisis.
However, nobody claimed her when she was abandoned maid, so she was towed to New York and sold at auction to a man named Richard W. Haynes. Now, as she was a Canadian vessel bought by an American, to be registered as an American ship, you'd have to pay an import tax.
Okay.
Haynes did not do this. He simply renamed her Mary Celeste and registered in New York. Mary Celeste is Latin for Heavenly Mary. Nobody knows why he named her that, but he named her Mary Celeste. And when somebody asked him about whether or not he had registered, he said that, well, it was so badly damaged that I practically had to rebuild her, so she's practically a brand new American ship.
That sounds kind of spooky. They're trying to get past the system.
That's fraud.
That's a lot. That sounds like a lot of what's going on in this story.
Yeah. So Haynes so this is another midlife crisis sailing. Okay. Haynes captained her for 10 months with no financial success.
Oh my god.
At which point she was repoed to pay off his debts.
Oh my gosh.
Which I really want. My stepdad growing up was really big into repo men. I really want a repo men, but it's just sailing ships. Mega yachts, mini cruise liners. We're here to take your boat.
Oh my gosh. I'd be so sick if
Could you imagine because repo men, there's that one fat lady with the really long hair.
Okay.
And I just imagine her on a jet ski trying to, I'm gonna sail away and just on a jet ski following her around.
Is this some TV show I'm not aware of?
You've never seen Repo Men?
No.
Okay, if you don't like cars, there's really no point in watching it.
Okay.
Because the point of Repo Men was just people who weren't making car payments getting their cars repossessed.
Oh.
But it was okay, so I only remember one episode, and it was this red antique convertible sports car, and they go to repossess it, and a woman comes out and she's carrying a framed picture and an urn, and she's like, I'm sorry, my husband just died, this was his baby, can I sit in her one last time? And it's this fat woman, she kind of rest in peace, Beth from Dog the Bounty Hunter. She kind of looks like Beth from Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Okay.
Just that sort of bigger woman, long blonde hair, the nails, the maxi dress, big boobs, that.
Okay.
And she's like, okay, yeah, you can sit in the car one last time. And she goes to get in the car and she goes, oh, let me hold your husband's urn. And the woman's like, no. And it's no, let me help you. And the woman's like, no. And the woman's fighting her for some reason, and she doesn't know why. And then she drops the urn, and the lid falls off, and sugar scatters everywhere.
Oh my god.
And everyone's aghast, at which point the front door of the house opens, and the dead husband walks out, and he goes, what's going on?
Oh my god, she was gonna steal that car. She was playing that con game.
And at this point, they're keeping her out of the car. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean you weren't making the car payments?
Oh my, that's crazy.
And it was all like that. It was very reality TV, but with cars. Because my stepfather was a big car guy. Shout out to Bill.
I'm here for that. I need to watch that show just for the drama.
Maybe later. We have a little while after this before we go out. So... Repoed, again, sold at auction to a man named James Winchester, who, shortly after buying it, was visited by a New York City surveyor who said, the import taxes were never paid on this. If you pay me, I won't say anything, so is blackmail.
Okay.
Winchester said... Oh, so he claimed that he rebuilt it. That's funny because this ship is only about 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's been repaired since it's been with the original owners. Oh, wow. Which was about a period of 5 years.
Yeah, that ship's probably not safe.
No, and she's a wooden ship, so like dry rot.
Right,
right. Also, she's sailing the ocean, so salt water also rots wood.
Right.
So, Winchester had actually repaid her to be rebuilt from the waterline up. Mm-hmm. Added a new deck and new rigging, and actually increased her tonnage to 280 tons.
Okay.
So the thing about ships is you don't really go by how long they are or how wide they are. What you want to go by is by tonnage. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is nearly doubling her size.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good for them.
Yeah, because it's very easy to make a ship longer without... That doesn't necessarily mean anything. You pay attention to the tonnage.
Okay.
But to pay for the repairs and the hefty import fee, Winchester sold a share of the ship to a man named Benjamin Spooner Briggs, who's very important to the story. Briggs was an experienced captain, and he actually took over as her captain.
Okay.
So the first voyage of the new Mary Celeste was to be from New York to Genoa, Italy. And Briggs decided that as part of this first voyage, he was going to bring his wife Sarah and his daughter Sophia with him. She was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. The crew consisted of 7 people. First mate Albert Richardson, second mate Andrew Gilling, cook steward Edmund Head, who was personally recommended by Winchester. Mm-hmm. And then 4 Prussian able-bodied seamen.
Oh, I know a lot about seamen.
I know you do.
Yeah, I've been around it a few times. I know a couple.
So an able-bodied seaman is basically a sailor who does anything around the ship. And so they were Fulkert and Boz Lazarin, who were brothers. Arian Martins and Gottlieb Gottschall.
Ooh, that pronunciation.
I know, and I don't want to say that ever again. And then, last but not least, and probably most importantly, the ship's cat, affectionately known and named by Sophia as Pua Poo.
Pua Poo.
Pua Poo.
We stand Pua Poo. I'm here for it.
The crew is described as a, and I quote, peaceable and first-class crew, unquote. Sarah Briggs wrote to her mother that they seemed to be quite capable, and Captain Briggs himself was eminently satisfied with them. He really handpicked all of them. He knew most of them. The first mate, the second mate, and then the cook steward, as I said, was personally recommended to him by Andrew, or what's his name? Winchester, James Winchester. Mm-hmm. Don't know where I got Andrew. Their cargo on this first voyage was to be 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol.
Okay. So
this is not fun alcohol like we're partaking in today. It's actually very, very dangerous. Because it's very gaseous. Mm-hmm. It evaporates very quickly and those flumes build up. So it needs to be vented well and regularly.
Okay, and those fumes will get you. Start hallucinating, maybe even die. Maybe? I don't know much about alcohol fumes, but...
So just thinking back to chemistry class, I'm so sorry to my chemistry teacher from high school, but I don't think we covered if alcohol can intoxicate gaseously. But remember, this is a wooden ship.
Oh, so those fumes can go right through.
No, not even. So they're in wooden barrels, and if they evaporate through the porous wood, and then they're in the ship, which is like a larger barrel. But the thing about the ship was it's made to be extremely waterproof.
Yeah.
So if it can't escape from the ship, what happens?
It'll build up until it explodes, probably.
Exactly. So that's why it's so dangerous. Especially if... And it's very, very flammable.
Oh.
So you don't want these barrels rolling around because they're wooden barrels, but they have those metal rings around them to hold them together.
Yeah.
What does metal and metal do?
Creates sparks.
And sparks and flammable gases create...
Explosion, I guess.
Boom.
Exactly. The big boom.
So at the very last moment, Briggs actually considered sending for his 7-year-old son, Arthur, who was staying with his mother. And then decided, no, I'm going to leave him in school.
Ooh.
But he did write to his mother. Our vessel is in beautiful trim, and I hope we shall have a fine passage. So on November the 5th, 1872, the Mary Celeste sailed away from her dock at New York's Pier 50 and into New York Harbor. But then Briggs very quickly anchored her off of Staten Island for 2 more days just due to storm and fogs. Meanwhile, a mile away from where it was initially moored, in Hoboken, New Jersey, was moored the Canadian ship De Gratia. And De Gratia was a very similar ship. She was built in Nova Scotia, built very much along the same lines, also has a Latin name. De Gratia is Latin for grace of God. But she was a slower ship, which probably because Mary Celeste was brand newly renovated, De Gratia probably was not as up to date. Oh well. But she was set to sail a week after the Mary Celeste under the command of Captain Daniel Morehouse. And reputedly, Morehouse was a friend of Briggs, and allegedly they had dined together shortly before the Mary Celeste's voyage. And on November 15th, 10 days after Mary Celeste left her moorings, but 8 days after Mary Celeste actually set sail, the De Gratia set sail also for Genoa.
Okay, so they were talking with each other. Okay.
So they reputedly, I will say that the only evidence of them being friends was from Captain Morehouse's widow 50 years after this event.
That's a long time.
That's a really long time. I want to know how old Morehouse was and how old his wife was.
Right, and memory fades too.
But she did claim that they were friendly. They were friends, or at least friendly, and that they had dinner. I believe most sources say the night before the Mary Celeste set sail. I'm just going to say shortly beforehand.
Okay, I got you.
But I will say that does come into slight iffy status later.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
So we're going to skip from November 15th to December 4th, 1872. That was ship time. It would have been actually December 5th land time in Spain.
Okay.
But December 4th, 1872. The De Gratia is midway between the Azore Islands and Portugal. The Azore Islands are islands in the Atlantic Ocean, and they're I think they're the only inhabited islands off the coast of mainland Europe. They're far off.
Okay.
They're far off. And it's around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Morehouse came onto deck where the helmsman informed him of another about 6 miles away.
Another what?
Ship.
Another ship 6 miles away? Okay.
So Morehouse looks at her through his telescope spyglass, binoculars, whatever they're using in 1872. And he notes that she's moving very oddly and that her sails look funny. And he determined very quickly that something had to be wrong. So it's not confirmed, but whether they moved course or they were just happened to be sailing towards her. But they got very close to her, and as they got close, they noticed that nobody was on deck, which was especially concerning because nobody was at the wheel.
Yeah, who's driving the ship?
Exactly. And now, wheels... So, it's very important for someone to be at the wheel of a ship because, much like a car, if you're not steering, you will go off path. But unlike a car, this is being controlled by the water. So it's very easy. So you have to have someone constantly there, like, oh, the wind is coming from the southeast, but we're trying to go east-east, so I have to...
Go the direction
I have to
going.
I have to, like... compensate for that.
Right.
So the fact that this ship is just kind of bobbing along at the helm is kind of concerning. Along with the fact that her sails are tattered, not really in good array.
Ooh.
So, Morehouse sent first mate John DeVoe, second mate Oliver Wright, and Seaman John Johnson. Would you like to make a joke about Seaman John Johnson?
I mean, that joke just makes itself. It's too easy. I don't go for low-hanging fruit.
In one of the De Gratia's lifeboats to investigate. They established immediately that this was the Mary Celeste by the fact that her name was across the stern.
Oh, okay.
So,
and that's his good Judy, too, so he's probably worried.
So they climb aboard, and they notice that the ship was empty and the lifeboat was missing, and they conducted a thorough search of the ship.
Well, right there, the lifeboat was missing, like...
Now, so stories have claimed, these are later stories, that the Mary Celeste was in perfect condition. The logbook, which is the book where all, like, important things are kept, was updated to the very hour of discovery.
What?
And that the table was set for a meal with hot, fresh food.
Okay, that's weird.
It should be weird because it's fake news.
Oh, okay.
But the facts are just as weird. So, in all actuality, the sails were tattered, the rigging was a mess, and actually some sails were pulled down onto the deck, like ripped down. No one was aboard. Not even Poo-a-Poo. Justice for Poo-a-Poo.
Okay, well, at least if they left, they took the cat with them and didn't just leave the cat.
The pumps were working, but there was still 3.5 to 4 feet of water in the hold. Now, all ships have pumps because you're going to get some water in there.
Yeah.
And so the pumps that's what they do. They pump the water back out of the side of the ship.
Right.
But they were still working. The decks and cabins were all soaking wet. The windows were battened down for bad weather, but a skylight was left open.
Okay.
All personal belongings were still there. The beds were unmade and appeared as if the occupants had left straight from bed. There was more than enough food and water to have lasted the voyage and then some, and none of it was missing. The last log entry was from 5 a.m. on November 25th, and it recorded her position as being 400 miles away from the current position.
400 miles?
400 miles. And what's really spooky is she would have been close to land.
Oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, so logbooks, they're official. So during the day, you would have a chalkboard called a log slate, which was a rough copy where you would mark things down. And then at the end of the day, you'd mark everything in the official log.
Yeah.
The log slate was started for that day, but was unfinished. And nothing was remarked as to what had happened. There were no signs of violence or of fire. And the ship's binnacle, which housed the compass, was moved, and the glass was shattered.
Huh.
The main hatch was secure, but the fore and aft, so the front and the back hatches, were open.
Okay. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Like, I know what it means, but I don't know why it's significant.
So you couldn't get into the main cargo hold through those hatches, but they were left open.
Okay.
So nothing was stolen.
Okay.
All the personal belongings are there. Like the Briggs, they brought a harmonium, like a small piano.
Okay.
It was a small piano.
Okay.
That was there. I'm sure they had some personal possessions. Captain Briggs had a ceremonial sword that was kept under his mattress. Still there.
Right. I prefer to keep my ceremonial sword above my mattress.
You prefer to keep your ceremonial sword in your pants.
Okay, prefer is a strong word. Most times I prefer it not to stay there, but circumstances. Just to
your ceremonial sword, well, at least when we go out to the gay bars, it's always standing on ceremony.
Oh, shit. It's always at full mast.
It's always at full mast. Mary Celeste too. I'm sailing at full mast. All right.
Back on track.
So, Morehouse and his...
Sorry, I'm thinking about Seaman John Johnson again.
It was John Johnson. Get it right.
Who cares?
Morehouse and his crew decided to bring the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar and claim salvage rights and get a substantial share of the ship's and cargo's value. So when you find an abandoned ship anywhere, if you are able to save it and the cargo, you get a share of the combined worth.
Oh, okay, like a finder's fee.
Yeah. And then you get extra if it's especially hazardous. However, they figured out that they did not have enough rope to tow it.
Mm-hmm.
So what Morehouse did was he sent DeVoe and 2 able-bodied seamen to sail the Mary Celeste, while he and the other 4 members of the crew. So Morehouse definitely took the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a crew of 8, and it's 3 against 5.
Mm-hmm.
To continue on the Degradia, and they sailed together. On December 12th, the Degradia did arrive in Gibraltar without the Mary Celeste.
Mm-hmm.
But the next morning, the Mary Celeste did arrive with Morehouse and the 2 seamen. What had happened was they encountered fog and they were put off course.
Okay.
Also, this is a ship that's used to having 7 crew members and a captain, and it was sailed with a first mate and 2 seamen.
Oh my gosh.
Immediately upon her arrival, because Morehouse had let the authorities know, she was impounded and an investigation into what happened commenced. Mm-hmm. You're going to say something. Just say it.
I'm sorry. There's just too many seaman jokes. It's so hard to control it. I know this is a very serious thing and the ship's gone. But that ship at one time, it was just...
The ship's not gone. The people are gone.
The ship's there. The people are gone. I wonder if the ship used to be covered in semen, and now all its semen is gone, and I just feel bad. I mean, everyone deserves to be covered in semen, be, operated and things.
I think I said this to you once, where we were watching something, and somebody was in a cute little sailor's outfit, and I said, I would love a cute little sailor's outfit, or preferably a cute little sailor.
Oh my god. I don't remember that, but it sounds like you.
It's very much me. But you were talking about semen, and that's all I could think of was I could go for a cute little sailor.
Yeah.
The little hat, the little flappy thing on the shirt.
Yeah, and you have your space there at sea for long amounts of time.
I'd be a perfect Victorian sailor's wife, on the widow's walk with my lantern and my cloak. God. The wind blowing through my hair like I'm Stevie Nicks.
I very much see that for you. The yearning.
Oh, the yearning just... Jebediah left me to sell a cargo of corn. I will wait for him to return to me.
Oh my gosh. Let's keep going.
So the point of this investigation was, why was a perfectly sound ship left abandoned? Because, yeah, the sails were messed up, there was water in the hole, but she was a perfectly fine ship.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm gonna, kinda say this a lot. There was no blood found on her.
Okay.
No signs of struggle and violence. Valuable cargo was untouched, as were all belongings.
Mm-hmm.
So, the investigation lasted from the moment they landed in December until March of the next year.
Okay.
Despite them initially claiming that there was clear signs of mutiny or piracy, nothing could be found.
Okay.
Nothing. So, the De Gratia and her crew were sent with a very small percentage fee, and both the judge and the prosecutor both said that though there was not evidence of wrongdoing, they were strongly inclined to believe there was some wrongdoing.
Oh, so maybe Homeboy knew they were sailing and followed them, and
We're going to come back to that. However, so the Mary Celeste, many people know the story of the Mary Celeste as the quintessential ghost ship story. However, at this time, in early 1873, she was quickly replaced in the news by the sinking of the White Star liner RMS Atlantic off the coast of Halifax.
okay.
So, it was oh, ghost ship, Mary Celeste. Oh, this thing sank and people died, but we know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are really, really interested, the White Star Line was the company that owned the Titanic.
Okay.
But not for another 30 years.
Okay.
So what happened to the Mary Celeste next? Because, her crew's gone. De Gratia's crew got a finder's fee. What happens to her? Winchester sold her to a firm called Cartwright and Harrison, who operated her for 5 years. During those 5 years, a third captain, Edgar Tuthill, died while commanding her.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Robert McClelland, who died, her first captain.
Mm-hmm.
We have Benjamin Briggs. We're going to assume he died.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have Edgar Tuthill. That's 3 captains. And we're 15 years into her life.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
That's one captain per 5 years.
She's coming for gigs.
She was considered a very unlucky ship, often sat at the pier because nobody wanted to hire her to move cargo, and she just continued to lose money for her owners. She was then bought by a man named Wesley Gove, who honestly tried to make her successful.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, he just had enough, and so he conspired with the then captain of the ship, Captain Gilman Parker, to overinsure her and her cargo of spoiled liquor and junk. Parker purposely rammed her into a reef off the coast of Haiti in 1885. Parker and the crew then rowed ashore after claiming whatever liquor they wanted for having helped him in this insurance scam.
Mm-hmm.
And he then sold the salvage rights to the American consul and filed all the necessary insurance claims. The American consul caught on very quickly because he went after the ship and saw that it was a bunch of old shoes.
Yeah.
And spoiled liquor.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance company launched their own investigation. And Parker and the owners were all tried for insurance fraud.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were all let off. I don't know how, but they were let off.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing that was said was that what could not be prosecuted in the court of law would be prosecuted in the court of public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But what instead happened was Gove, Parker, and the first mate of the ship all died within 6 months of the sinking of the Mary Celeste.
That's weird.
And what's even weirder was the insurance company hired 2 ships, the Saxon and the Mary D. Douglas, to help in the investigation because they went down. The ship isn't very deep. So they were sort of over her with divers to see what happened. Both of those ships sank with all hands, which means everyone aboard.
Yeah.
On their first voyage after the investigation concluded.
What even? That's so wild.
She would return to the popular imagine, however, 1 year prior to her sinking with the publishing of J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement, which was a short story written in the first-person narrative by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock Holmes fame, which just started a long history of fantastic retellings. That whole, she was found in perfect condition and the logbook was perfectly up to date up until her discovery and warm, fresh food. That started with Doyle's story, which, please, dear listener, do not read it. I read it to see if there was anything worthwhile. For my intro or my outro, it is horrible, it is sensational, and it is racist.
Oh, not that.
It is very racist. It is extremely racist.
Immediate no.
Racism is at the heart of it. Because for those of you who don't know who Conan Arthur Doyle is, he wrote Sherlock Holmes, but he was also a white man in the 1800s. So he was big racist.
Yikes. Not that.
But I will conclude this portion of the podcast with the wreck was found by Clive Cussler, who is a well-known maritime author and maritime adventurer, in 2001.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Well, they knew where they wrecked it, but, that doesn't mean people are, going out to it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
get to it eventually.
But actually, you can go up to Nova Scotia. There is a museum, the Museum of Sailing History, I think it's called. I'm probably wrong.
Sounds like a thrilling place.
I would love it because I love boats.
See, I wouldn't.
I love boats. I fucking love boats.
Well, you can go. That's all you.
You really act as if I'm not going to drag you when we're on tour.
Oh my gosh.
You really act as if I'm not going to drag you.
We'll see what happens.
I'm not telling you have to enjoy it. I'm just saying you have to go.
Oh my god, my dad used to take me to shit like that. Not the tea.
Okay, well, you can stay at the hotel and I will go have an adventure looking at actual remnants from this ghost ship.
Period. Take pictures.
Okay, so enough with history. We're going to get into the theories.
Ooh.
Which, Paul, now that you know the history, this is the part where, really discuss, if you have something to say.
Oh, okay.
So our first theory is going to be mutiny. So this theory is that the Q crew rose up against Briggs. So that's when a crew rises up against the captain and throws him overboard, whether in a lifeboat or just to the sharks.
Mm-hmm.
And takes control of the ship for themselves.
Okay.
So this year's theory is that the crew mutiny against Briggs either for the alcohol or after consuming the alcohol, and that they killed him, Sarah, and Sophia, and then left in the lifeboat.
But there were no bodies. Oh, I guess they could have thrown them overboard.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Okay, I could believe it.
And actually, the suspicion was especially on the Lorenzen brothers, because they were the only ones whose personal belongings were not found.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is very well documented that they were involved in a shipwreck earlier that year, and they had no belongings because they were lost in that shipwreck.
Okay.
So back at this time, when you were a sailor, you took everything you owned with you on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were in a shipwreck and you lost everything, you would have to wait to rebuy it all.
Okay.
So yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. I could see it.
But Paul, there were no signs of violence.
Maybe they went willingly.
Okay.
They were like, okay.
Yeah, so like Captain Briggs just said, like, yeah, throw my wife and my 2-year-old daughter over the side. Oh, might as well throw me too. I'm also going to bring up there is no blood.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like I really don't think you could get. I really don't think you could get, like, unless you grabbed the baby and you threw her overboard, and like the mother, Sarah, jumped overboard, and then Briggs was just forced overboard after them. But that's very, very hearsay.
Yeah.
Like that, you got to be like perfect to do that. Also, industrial alcohol is extremely harmful for the body.
Yeah.
It can cause illness, it can cause organ failure, it can cause unconsciousness. What it does not, so you can't drink it. So they did not do it for the cargo. And they did not do it from drinking the cargo, because I explained that. And even if they did, it would cause organ failure and unconsciousness and maybe death.
Yeah.
But not mania to the point of, like, killing people. Also, if they killed them for the cargo, why wouldn't they take the cargo?
That's true. And then where did they go? Oh, well, the lifeboat, duh.
Yeah. But still, why wouldn't you take the cargo?
That's true.
Nothing of value is taken. The only things that were missing were some maps and the navigational tools.
Maybe they were going to try and come back for it, maybe?
We'll come back to that later. Our second theory. Pirates.
Okay.
We like this. Okay. So, what if pirates attacked the ship, killed the crew for the cargo? You say it right.
Yeah, but there's no blood.
Yeah. No blood.
No
signs of violence.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense.
And do you know what else? The ship started with 1,701 barrels of alcohol.
Yeah.
Do you know how many were found on her?
1,700. They took one.
1,701.
Okay.
I will say, okay, we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so all the cargo's still there.
Yeah.
But there is another thing with piracy. Maybe it wasn't pirates like Jack Sparrow, but piracy is at any point where somebody hijacks a ship for monetary gain. So what if the crew of the De Gratia committed piracy?
See, that's what I was low-key thinking.
Yeah, so just like catch them up, force them overboard, claim salvage rights, because you can't just be like, oh, look, like we were only carrying petroleum. The De Gratia was carrying petroleum. And now we have all these cargoes of industrial alcohol. But salvage rights. Like I said, you could get a substantial price of the cargo plus the value of the ship.
Dang, they could have made some coins. And he knew he was getting on that ship. And that they were sailing and things.
However, there were no signs of violence. How do you take an entire ship with no violence?
Right.
But more importantly, De Gratia was a slower ship, and it left a full week and a day after the Mary Celeste.
Right. So then, like, the Mary Celeste was probably floating there for a bit before, like, De Gratia caught up to them.
Exactly. And also, remember when I mentioned that Morehouse sent First Mate DeVoe and 2 seamen over to man the Mary Celeste?
Yeah.
Well, he and 4 members of the crew stayed on the De Gratia. If you're planning on doing this, why wouldn't you be better prepared by having, like, a crew of 16?
Right. More people to man the other ship.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, we're going to move off of those fairly, like, regular world answers into natural phenomena.
Okay.
A waterspout. Paul, do you know what a waterspout is?
Yeah, it's like a tornado, but in the ocean.
Exactly. So, I mean, the sudden appearance of a waterspout would explain the tattered rigging and sails, as well as the water throughout the ship. Because the change of the barometric pressure
Yeah.
would cause the pumps to actually reverse.
Yeah.
So rather than pumping water out, they'd start pumping water in.
Mm-hmm.
There was 3 to 4 foot of water in the hold.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a waterspout came and they thought that the ship was going to be destroyed, so they got in the lifeboat and left, right?
Yeah. That would make sense.
Right? But a waterspout would have caused more damage than was present.
I mean, that makes sense, too.
It would have destroyed the ship, and if not, wouldn't they have been able to get back to the ship?
Yeah, maybe they thought the waterspout was going to hit, but then it didn't end up hitting the ship.
Okay, that's a good theory.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good theory. Moving from waterspout into an underwater earthquake.
Okay, tell me about this. What even?
So, what... Okay, Paul, let's go back to basic earth science. So, 2/3 of the world of planet Earth is water.
Well, yeah.
But what is underneath the water?
Well, yeah, Earth, yeah.
So, I mean, you've heard of tsunamis.
Yeah.
So, like, sometimes those are earthquakes underwater.
Okay.
So just like on land, an earthquake can occur underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And a submarine earthquake would actually cause turbulence on the top of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you're shaking and then the water.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to take... So I have the wine glass, and I'm slightly shaking what's happening to the wine inside of it.
Yeah, it's shaking. The water is, like, getting turbulent, yeah.
But if I set it down, it calms down.
Yeah.
So, they could have thought the ship was going to sink due to the earthquake, or there could have been waves, gone in the lifeboat, been swept overboard, whatever.
Right.
Or the underwater earthquake could have caused waves, which then knocked the barrels loose, causing the fumes to escape, which led Briggs and the crew to abandon the ship in fear of explosion.
Okay, see, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because this whole water spout and, like, the big wave thing from the earthquake, why would you leave the big boat for a smaller boat in a situation like that? Like, doesn't make sense. But this whole thing you just said about the barrels getting knocked loose or whatever, them afraid of it exploding, that makes sense.
So now I'm going to do the most probable of the natural phenomena. Not enough venting.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned earlier, industrial alcohol needs to be vented frequently due to the leakage of fumes.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, there were 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. 9 of them were found empty, but all 9 of the ones that were found empty were made of red oak and not white oak, and that's a more porous, which means it's easier for the fumes to evaporate through them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they were drained. It was...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Vented or whatever.
So the ship's log did report that the Mary Celeste faced bad weather for most of the voyage. Plus, they did find all the windows and doors battened down, which reinforces this fact. So, if you're battened down for bad weather, how are you going to vent your gaseous cargo?
Right.
So, the buildup of the gases in this wooden hull would have caused loud rumbling and crinking throughout the ship. The ship would have sounded like she was about to blow. Oh. And remember I mentioned that the main hatch was left covered, which was probably so that they were afraid it might blow off, but the front and aft hatches were open, as was the skylight. So perhaps they opened these to vent the ship, got into the lifeboat in case the ship did blow.
Okay.
Tied a rope, let themselves off a bit, and then either the rope broke or was improperly tied, and the current took them one way, and the breeze took the ship another way.
That would be rough.
That's big rough.
Yeah, you're stuck in the middle of the ocean with nothing. Oh gosh, that would be awful.
Now, into the cryptic part.
Ooh, spooky.
The paranormal. the Bermuda Triangle. The Mary Celeste is often brought up in terms of Bermuda Triangle stories, but I'm going to discredit this right now because she was nowhere near the Bermuda Triangle at any point during this voyage, but people still bring it up. She's like, Bermuda, Bahamas.
Oh my gosh. Not that weird song.
Yes, she just felt the vibe and they were beamed up into the Bermuda Triangle.
Jesus, not that.
A little more probable. A giant squid.
Well, then the giant squid, there would have been more like damage to the ship, I feel like.
Yes. Okay. So giant squid, which have now been proven to be real.
Yeah.
Can grow up to 50 feet long and are known to attack ships.
Mm-hmm.
But you are very right that they would cause damage, and also they would not be able to pluck the lifeboat and the navigational equipment up.
Right.
So let's go to aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Cue that meme. Aliens. Aliens really could have beamed all of them off. Like, if there was, like, lights in the sky and they all came up, just boop, 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 boop.
Hey, why not, you know?
But wouldn't they have left the lifeboat?
That's true. The aliens had no need for the lifeboat, probably.
Unless it was a comfort thing for the abductees.
What do you mean?
Like, what if they were like, we can't leave our ship without our lifeboat? And so it's just like, okay, we'll take it too.
Okay. That's weird.
It is weird. So now we're going to get into my favorite theory.
Okay.
And Paul, after researching the history of the ship, I think this is the most probable theory.
All right.
A curse.
Okay. I love a good curse.
3 of her captains died while in command of her.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to an entire crew simply disappeared in unexplained circumstances. She was rarely profitable with a long history of damage and abandonment. At least twice she was seized for share sale by repossession.
Yeah.
2 ships associated with her also sank.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think all points in the story lend to her carrying a curse.
How do you think she got cursed, though?
Well, Paul, the Americas are often called the New World because white people came here and quote-unquote discovered them.
Yeah.
But who knows what was here before she was built?
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, she was built from brand new forest. Like, they downed the trees to build her.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Okay. So who knows what those trees that she was made out of?
And who knows? Maybe who knows? Maybe Robert McClellan's death just put bad luck on her.
Mm-hmm. It was his ghost coming back.
It could have been
for revenge for whatever reason.
No, I mean, just she only lived for 15 years. She only sailed for 15 years.
Yeah.
Not even 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just under 15. And it's just a story of loss and death.
Yeah.
And I actually, because I knew the story beforehand, and a lot of my information was from a YouTube documentary on the Mary Celeste from Part-Time Traveler. Go check them out on YouTube, especially if you like ships.
Mm-hmm.
But having watched that, I really went into this thinking like, okay, like, it's unexplained, which is perfect for the podcast, but like, there's a rational answer.
Mm-hmm.
But once I was done, I was like, I think it was a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Which very rarely do I go from thinking of something as rational into something as paranormal. Normally it's, I think of something as paranormal until I learn more.
Right. I don't know about the curse thing. I'm leaning more towards like the fumes thing. That one's really resonating with me.
You're going logical?
Yeah, I think I'll have to go logical on this one.
Well, Could that not be part of a wider curse?
Oh, that could be part of the curse. You're right. Oh my gosh.
I never said they had to be exclusive.
That's tea. That's the tea there.
Which
you
is
might be onto
exactly what
something.
my last boyfriend said to me.
Oh, what? You might be part of the curse?
No, we don't necessarily have to be exclusive.
Oh my gosh.
That's not true. That's not true. My last boyfriend did not say that. Who was my last boyfriend?
Yeah, the V1.
Yeah, no, what he said was like, we're taking, or it was, we're not going to dox him. We're not going to dox him.
Right, we're not doxing on the pod today. Maybe another time when we're feeling a little more spicy, but not right now.
Let me read my conclusion. What happened to those aboard the Mary Celeste? Were they victims of mutiny, of piracy, of bad judgment, or of something far more sinister? We'll probably never know what happened to them for sure. But in this stranger-than-fiction case, maybe not knowing is for the best.
I like that ending.
Thanks. I know. I worked really hard on it.
Now let me pose a question to you.
Okay.
Do you think Seaman John Johnson has a Demdike rewards card?
I don't think he does. Because we came up with that last week. And he died sometime in the 1800s, I'm sure.
Listen, I'm not going to let this go. Seaman John Johnson, he's coming back on later podcasts, just like the Demdike rewards card.
No,
They're here to stay.
I have two questions for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
First question. Smash or pass, poo-a-poo?
Okay, I'm not into bestiality, but I would definitely save Poo-a-Poo.
Justice for poo-a-poo, that's what I'm saying.
We stan a kitty.
And also, I forgot this last week during Pendle Witches. Smash or pass, James the First the Witch Hunter?
Oh, James the First, we're gonna have to pass. We don't stand people coming after people just because they are spooky witchy. We don't stand that.
And the internalized homophobia.
Yeah, we don't mess with that either. So we're passing him too. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to our episode before this one about the Pembroke Witches.
The Pendle Witches.
Pendle. I'll never be able to say that right.
No, and it's I love it because you keep, like, it's so simple and you keep, like...
messing it up.
You keep, like, making it more complicated than it needs to be.
That's just who I am as a person. That's just the life I'm living. It's the cross I'm bearing. And you know, also, very quick, I do want to go back to this uneven keel wine because it is very good. You all go out to your nearest liquor store, get this uneven keel wine. It is so good, and I'm here for it.
If you are in Pittsburgh, you can go to Ross Park Mall. They have a store there.
Yeah.
If you are in the state of Pennsylvania or New York or Ohio, you can drive to the actual winery. It's near Erie.
Yeah, and it smells really good there. When I was there, you could smell the grapes and everything. We stand.
But regardless, they do have a website, and they do ship.
Mm-hmm.
They are Courtyard Winery.
Courtyard Winery. And we'll
I think...
tag them in the comments, maybe?
I actually might tag them.
Yeah, we might tag them. We'll see. But Courtyard Winery, go to their website.
Courtyardwinery.com.
Right.
They do... I think that looks like all 50 states.
Right. And we are not sponsored by them,
we're
not getting a penny.
Good.
This is our honest opinion.
And I have never had a bad bottle of wine there. They do have one, like, it's a red. Mm-hmm. And it's peppery, like black peppery. Mm-hmm. Which I love black pepper.
Yeah, for sure.
And it has this black pepper aftertaste, which, when you think of, like, drinking wine, doesn't sound good. But it's delightful.
I'm going to have to give that a go. Maybe we'll have to have that on one of the pods. And
we will do that
give that a go.
We will do that again. For right now, I'm still trying to pair wine to story.
Which is going really well. You're doing a great job.
And eventually, I am not opposed to drinking a liquor or a cocktail or a beer.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but like it just has been. I was determined with this one to find one with a ship on the front. Mm-hmm. And this one was, and I was like, I really don't want to do red. And they do a captain's at Courtyard Winery. They do a captain's red, white, and a rosé. Mm-hmm. But I was reading the description, and it was all dry, and you and I, neither of us particularly like dry wine.
Right.
So I felt like this...
That was the go-to.
Yeah. And it has a really fun bottle.
It does. This was a very good choice. I enjoyed it, and I might even buy it again. Maybe. We'll see.
It was $30, so...
30?
Maybe. Yeah, it was $30 for this bottle. And I am surprised because I thought, like, that it wasn't going to give us as much wine as it did.
Yeah, because it is a smaller bottle.
But you and I are both on our second glass.
Yeah.
And there's still enough for us to have one more glass.
Right.
Which is a perfectly normal bottle of wine. If you're my grandmother, no, I'm not drinking.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about, Rose.
Two. Well, if that's, after hearing this podcast, if that's what your grandmother's concerned about.
Yeah, she should be more concerned about my loose morals and the fact that I'm going to die alone.
Probably.
Despite having loose morals.
Oh my gosh. Well.
And if you work with us, no, you don't.
Yeah, you don't know me.
You didn't hear any of this.
Right, exactly.
All right, so we are still very early on. This is episode 5.
Yes.
We have been doing our tarot pulls at the beginning of the episodes. We're going to try doing it at the end of the episode. And if we don't like it, we may just get rid of it and make it as a bonus.
Yeah, we'll see. So let's get up in this tarot, see what the tarot cards have to say to us today. See if they have anything about the ship, maybe. Well, let's just see what card we pull. Ooh, okay.
So, really funny, we pulled 2 wands, which all has to do with wood.
Okay.
So maybe it was that curse. We have the 6 of wands. I am going to get the guidebook.
Period.
I am unafraid. Yeah, go ahead, Mom. I am unafraid of reading the guidebook. Okay.
Sometimes you just need a little guidance in life, and that's okay.
Okay. This is the card of servants. They wear the livery of the house of the suits of wands. The same worn by the page of wands in the top row is encouragement next to jester. Club. Okay. Meanings. Conquest, triumph, good news, gain, advancement, expectation, desires realized, the results of efforts.
Awesome. So we're going to see the fruit of our labors. Iconic.
But next we have the 7 of wands, which also means success in overcoming obstacles and challenges, surmounting overwhelming odds. And
so there's a lot of success coming.
See, I think we're going to get a lot of listeners with this one because this is all about being heard.
Okay, cool.
And then our last one is the page of coins, which means deep concentration, study, scholarship, reflection, respect for knowledge, desire for learning, and new ideas, a do-gooder, and a bearer of good news.
Oh, lots of good things on the horizon.
We are going to be starting our Patreon soon, so please do feel free to donate to the Patreon. That right now that will go towards posting fees and other
better technology. Get up in the gig a little
and
more.
And other podcast related fees.
Yes.
And we have not finalized like what benefits that will come with Patreon, but when we set up the Patreon, we will.
Right. It's all a work in progress. We'll get there.
But we really, really want to do listener stories. So please email us your stories at cryptsandcorks@gmail.com. Or if you have topic suggestions, feel free to email them there. Mm-hmm. We can also be found on Instagram at cryptsandcorkspod. You can DM us with suggestions. I am going to ask that you do not DM us your personal stories. Email those to us just so that it's easier for us to find and print out.
True, yeah.
Paul, where can they find you?
And they can find me on my Instagram at Paul Ember, PaulemBer.
And if you'd like to follow me outside of this, my Instagram is at DJ Chessy, CHESSEY, Powers, P as in Paul, OWERS.
All right.
And we will also be setting up a Facebook and a TikTok soon, hopefully.
Yep, lots of things in the works, lots of things on the horizon, so stick with us.
And until next time, keep your crypts tight.
And your corks loose.
Bye.